Damien Sterling stopped walking in the middle of the hospital hallway and turned slowly. He had just stepped out of his father's private room on the upper floor of St. Catherine's Medical Center, his phone pressed to his ear, his mind already moving toward the next thing on his endless list. A board meeting, a contract, a delivery from the lawyer's office. He had been a man in motion for so long that even grief had to wait its turn on his schedule. The voice belonged to a young girl, perhaps 9 years old, standing near the supply cart at the corner of the corridor. She was holding a stack of clean towels almost too big for her arms, and her dark eyes were fixed on him with a seriousness that did not belong on a child's face. He took the phone away from his ear and looked at her with mild impatience. "I'm sorry, your father's IV bag," she said again. Her voice was quiet but steady, the way people speak when they know the words matter more than the volume. "You need to check it, please." Damien glanced at the nurse's station behind her. A woman in pink scrubs was typing on a computer, paying no attention. 2 doctors were talking quietly near the elevator. Nobody was looking at the girl. Nobody was looking at him. "Who are you?" he asked. "My mother works here," the girl said. "She cleans the rooms on this floor. She brought me today because the daycare was closed." She shifted the stack of towels in her arms. "Please, sir. I'm not crazy. I'm not lying." Damien exhaled slowly. He had not slept properly in several nights. His father, Theodore Sterling, the man who had built the Sterling Holdings empire from a single hardware store in Detroit, was lying in a bed nearby, recovering from heart surgery. The doctors had said the operation was a success. They had said he might be home in the coming weeks. They had said all the things doctors say when they want family members to stop asking questions and go back to their lives. But the girl was still standing there, holding the towels, watching him. "I have to take this call," Damien said, lifting the phone again. After they finished the call, the girl said quickly, "They always change the bag at the same time. They change it together. But this time only one nurse came. She wasn't wearing her badge. I always look at the badges because my mother says you can tell who works here by the badge. She didn't have one." Damien lowered the phone. He looked at her for a long moment. There was something about the way she had said it. Not nervous, not dramatic, just careful, like a person describing something they had seen with their own eyes and did not want to be wrong about. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena," she said. "Elena, how long ago did this nurse come?" "A little while ago," she said. "She was inside the room for quite some time. Then she left through the back stairs. The other nurses always use the elevator." Damien felt a chill move along the back of his neck. He told himself it was exhaustion. He told himself that hospitals were big, complicated places, and that nurses sometimes used the stairs, and that badges sometimes fell off, and that children sometimes imagined things. He told himself all of that. And then he turned and walked back toward his father's room. The girl followed him at a distance, still carrying the towels. When Damien opened the door, his father was asleep. The room was dim, the curtains half closed, the machines beeping in their slow, patient rhythm. Theodore Sterling looked smaller than Damien remembered, his white hair thin against the pillow, one hand resting on the blanket near his side. The IV pole stood beside the bed, the clear plastic bag hanging from it, the tube running down toward the inside of the old man's arm. Damien stepped closer. The bag looked normal, clear liquid, standard hospital label. The drip was slow and steady. He stood there for a moment feeling slightly foolish. He was a man in his mid-40s with billions in assets and thousands of employees. And he had just rushed back into a hospital room because a child in the hallway had told him to check a medical bag. He almost turned to leave. Then he saw it. There were 2 small puncture marks on the rubber port at the top of the bag. Not 1, 2. And around the second puncture, there was the faintest smudge of something, a residue, like the edge of a fingerprint that had not quite been wiped clean. Damien stared at it for a very long time. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and pressed a single number on the screen. Security, he said quietly. My father's room. Now. Damien Sterling stood very still beside his father's bed, his eyes fixed on the IV bag. The two small puncture marks looked back at him like a question he did not want to answer. Behind him, the door opened quietly. He turned and saw Elena standing in the doorway, still holding the towels, her face anxious. "You believe me now?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the door and gently guided her into the room, closing it behind her. The last thing he wanted was for anyone in the hallway to see her talking to him. "How did you know to look at the bag?" he asked, keeping his voice low. She set the towels on a chair carefully, like she was relieved to put them down. "Because of yesterday," she said. "Yesterday?" She nodded. "I was helping my mother in the supply closet next to this room. The closet has a small window in the door. People don't notice it because there are boxes in front of it inside. But you can see out." Damien listened. "There were two people in the hallway," she said. "A man in a suit and a woman wearing nurse clothes, but the nurse didn't have a badge." The man gave her a small white envelope. She put it in her pocket. Then he said something I didn't understand at first. He said, "Make sure it's slow. It has to look like the heart." And the woman said, "I know what I'm doing." Then they walked in different directions. Damien felt the cold sensation on his neck spread down into his shoulders. "Did you see their faces?" "The woman?" "Yes," Elena said. "The man? Only from the side. But I would know his voice. He had a deep voice, like a radio." Damien turned his head slightly and looked at his father again. Theodore Sterling's chest rose and fell in slow, uneven breaths. The machines kept their patient rhythm. To anyone walking by, it would have looked like an old man peacefully recovering from surgery. To Damien, it now looked like something else entirely. There was a sharp knock at the door. He went to open it. Two men in dark blue blazers with hospital security badges stepped inside. The older one, broad-shouldered with a gray mustache, spoke first. "Mr. Sterling, we came as fast as we could. What's the problem?" Damien pointed at the IV pole without speaking. The older guard walked over and bent down slightly, studying the bag. His expression did not change at first. Then it changed slowly. He pulled a small flashlight from his belt and clicked it on, angling the beam at the top of the bag. "2 puncture sites," he said quietly. "That shouldn't be there. Only one is needed for the line." "Stop the drip," Damien said. The guard hesitated. "Sir, we'd need a nurse to stop it now. And get the head of the floor up here. Get the head of the hospital. I don't care who you have to call. And do not let anyone touch this bag until we know what's in it." The younger guard was already on his radio. Damien turned to Elena. She was standing by the wall, small and quiet, her eyes moving between his face and his father's. "You said your mother works here," he said gently. "Yes." "What's her name?" Sophia Ramirez. She works on this floor and the floor below." "I need you to stay with me for a little while," Damien said, "but I don't want anyone to see you talking to me alone. Can you sit over there, near the window, like you're waiting for someone? Don't say anything to anyone." She nodded, calm in a way that surprised him. She walked to the chair near the window and sat down, folding her hands in her lap like a child who had been raised to be patient. Soon the room was different. 2 nurses had come in, then a doctor, then the floor supervisor, then a man Damien recognized as the chief administrator of St. Catherine's. The IV line had been clamped. The bag had been removed and placed inside a sealed plastic container. The doctor had spoken in calm phrases that did not quite hide his concern. "We will run a full toxicology on the fluid immediately," the administrator said quietly to Damien in the corner of the room. "But Mr. Sterling, if what you are suggesting is true, this is a police matter, not just a hospital one." "I know," Damien said. "Do you have any reason to believe someone would want to harm your father?" Damien thought about that question carefully. His father was an elderly man in his 80s. He had been retired for some time. He had no business enemies left that anyone could name. He was a widower. He lived quietly. He read books and watched old movies and spoke softly to the housekeeper, Mrs. Ellison, who had been with the family for many years. "No reason that I can think of," Damien said. But even as he said it, a quiet voice somewhere inside him answered, "Yes, you can." Because Theodore Sterling had not always been quiet, and the family he had left behind was not as simple as it looked from the outside. The hospital administrator was a careful man named Dr. Philip Lang. He spoke in the measured tone of someone who had spent years protecting an institution from lawsuits, scandals, and the bad decisions of others. Damien knew the type. He employed many men like him. "Mr. Sterling," Dr. Lang said quietly, "we have moved your father to a different room on this floor. The room number will not be entered into the main system. Only authorized staff will know the new location. We are pulling all surveillance footage from the past couple of days, and we are flagging every employee who entered your father's room during that time. I want my own people to review that footage too," Damien said. Dr. Lang hesitated. "That's not standard procedure." "This is not a standard situation." Dr. Lang held his eyes for a moment, then nodded once. "I will arrange it." "And the police?" "They are on their way. A detective from the Major Crimes Division. He's discreet. He has handled situations like this before." Damien glanced at the chair near the window. Elena was still sitting there, very still, her hands folded. She had not moved in some time. She had not asked for anything. She had not spoken to a single person in the room. She watched everything with the same quiet attention she had given the towels in the hallway. "There is one more thing," Damien said, lowering his voice. "There is a girl in this room. Her mother works for the hospital. She is the reason I knew to check the bag. I do not want anyone to know it was her. Not yet. Not the staff, not the police, not anyone. If the people who did this find out a child saw something, she becomes a target." Dr. Lang looked toward the chair, surprised. He had clearly not even noticed her. "I understand," he said. "I need to speak to her mother, privately, in a room where no one will overhear us. Can you arrange that?" "Yes." A short while later, Damien was sitting in a small windowless office. Across from him sat a woman in her mid-30s with tired eyes and her hair pulled back into a neat bun. Sofia Ramirez had a name tag clipped to the front of her uniform and a small gold cross on a thin chain around her neck. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap. Elena sat beside her very close, leaning into her mother's shoulder. "Mrs. Ramirez," Damien said, "thank you for coming." "What did she do?" Sofia asked immediately. Her voice was firm but afraid. "Whatever happened, sir, please. She is a good girl. She doesn't make trouble. I tell her every day at this hospital, you keep your hands to yourself. You don't talk to anyone. You stay close to me." "Mrs. Ramirez," Damien said gently, "your daughter did not do anything wrong. Your daughter saved my father's life. At least we think she did. We won't know for sure until the lab results come back. But everything points to her being right." Sofia stared at him. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. Then she looked at Elena. "What is she talking about, baby?" Elena looked up at her mother with the same calm eyes she had used in the hallway. "Mama, I saw the woman yesterday. I told you. The one without the badge. I told you she was acting strange. You said, don't worry about it." Sofia closed her eyes for a long moment. Damien could see her replaying a conversation in her head, a conversation she had dismissed because she was tired and busy and trying to keep a child quiet during a long shift. "Oh, baby," she whispered. "Oh, I am so sorry." "It's okay, Mama, I told the man." Sofia looked up at Damien, and there were tears in her eyes now. But she was not crying. She was holding them back with the discipline of someone who had learned years ago that crying at work was a luxury she could not afford. "Sir," she said, "I have worked at this hospital for many years. I have never had a complaint. I take care of my daughter alone. Her father passed some time ago. This job is everything to us. If she got involved in something..." "Mrs. Ramirez," Damien leaned forward slightly. Listen to me carefully. Nothing is going to happen to your job. Nothing is going to happen to your daughter. In fact, the opposite. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to go home today. Not now. Finish your shift normally, so nothing looks strange, but at the end of your shift, take Elena, go home, and do not come back tomorrow. I will explain to the hospital. I will cover everything you would have earned. Pack a small bag for yourself and for her. Tonight, someone will come to your home. He is a man I trust. He will take you somewhere safe for a few days. Sophia stared at him. Sir, you are scaring me. I know, Damien said quietly. I am scared too. By evening, the police had come and gone. The detective was a soft-spoken man named Morales with quiet eyes and a notebook that he barely seemed to use. He listened more than he wrote. Damien liked him immediately, which was unusual because Damien rarely liked anyone immediately. The toxicology report came back later that evening. Dr. Lang delivered the news himself, standing in the doorway of the new room where Theodore Sterling slept unquietly, unaware that his life had nearly ended that afternoon. Mr. Sterling, Dr. Lang said, the IV bag contained the standard saline solution it was supposed to contain. But it also contained a high concentration of potassium chloride. Damien did not know much about medicine, but he had heard those words before in the context of executions. His face must have shown it because Dr. Lang continued quickly. At the concentration we found, and given your father's age and cardiac condition, it would have caused cardiac arrest within roughly an hour of the bag beginning to drip. It would have looked like a complication from the surgery, a heart attack in a recovering patient. Nothing would have raised suspicion. There would have been no autopsy. The family doesn't usually request one in cases like this. So someone tried to murder my father, Damien said quietly, and make it look like his heart failed. Yes. Damien walked to the window of the small consultation room and looked out at the city. The lights of downtown were beginning to come on, one by one, the way they did every evening. From up here, the world looked very ordered. Cars moved in neat lines. Buildings stood where they were supposed to stand. Nothing seemed wrong from up here. But somewhere out there, a woman in a fake nurse uniform had walked out of this hospital today, thinking she had just earned her money. And somewhere out there, a man with a deep voice like a radio was waiting for a phone call, telling him that Theodore Sterling had died peacefully in his sleep. Damien turned back to Dr. Lang. I want my own private security here tonight. Several men, 2 outside my father's door at all times, 2 at the elevator, 2 at the stairwell, 2 who do nothing but watch the hallway. No one goes in that room who is not on my approved list, including hospital staff. Any nurse who needs to administer medication does it in front of one of my men, and the medication is checked first. Mr. Sterling, the hospital has its own protocols. Your protocols failed today, Dr. Lang. With respect, my protocols start now. Dr. Lang did not argue. He simply nodded once and left the room. Damien pulled out his phone. He scrolled past the work numbers, past the lawyers, past the assistants, and stopped on a name he had not called in some time. He pressed it. The phone rang several times before a tired voice answered. Damien. Victor, Damien said. I need you. There was a pause on the other end. Victor Kane had been Damien's head of personal security for many years until recently, when he had quietly retired to spend time with his wife after a health scare of his own. They had parted on good terms. They had stayed in touch loosely. Birthday calls, holiday messages. What's wrong? Victor asked. Someone just tried to kill my father in his hospital bed. Today, with potassium chloride in his IV bag. A child caught it. He's alive. But I don't know who did it, and I don't know who's behind it, and I cannot trust my normal security team because I do not know who has been talking. Victor was quiet for several seconds. "I'll be there soon," he said. "Do not talk to anyone in your family about this. Not your sister Eleanor, not your brother Oliver, not your stepmother Serena, not the housekeeper, not your father's lawyer, especially not your father's lawyer, not anyone. Do you understand me?" "I understand." "And Damien?" "Yes." "The child who caught it. Where is she now?" "At home, with her mother. I sent one of my men to watch the house." "One man is not enough. Send 3, and move them somewhere else tonight. A hotel, not under their real names. Pay cash. Do it within the hour." "All right." Damien ended the call and stood there for a moment in the empty consultation room, breathing slowly. He thought about what Victor had said. Not your sister, not your brother, not your stepmother. His stepmother. Damien closed his eyes. His father had remarried several years ago. Her name was Serena. She was much younger than Theodore Sterling. She had been his nurse during a long illness, the one that had ended his first wife's life, Damien's mother. Some time after the funeral, Theodore had married her quietly without telling his children. Damien had told himself at the time that he understood. His father was lonely. Now, he was not so sure what he had understood. Victor Kane arrived at the hospital later that night. He looked older than Damien remembered, his hair more silver than before, but his eyes were the same. Sharp, patient, and very awake. He carried a small leather bag and a coat folded over his arm, like a man who had not been sure how many nights he would be staying. They met in the small consultation room. Damien had not eaten since breakfast. A cup of cold coffee sat untouched on the table. "Tell me everything," Victor said as he sat down. "From the beginning, don't skip details. Especially don't skip the ones you think don't matter." Damien told him. About the girl in the hallway, the puncture marks, Sofia Ramirez, Dr. Lang, the toxicology report, the woman in fake nurse clothing, the man with the radio voice. Victor listened the way he always listened, with his eyes half closed and his head slightly tilted, like he was hearing a song that he wanted to remember every note of. When Damien finished, Victor asked one question. "Who benefits if your father dies?" Damien had been waiting for that question. He had also been avoiding it. "3 people benefit financially in obvious ways," he said slowly. "My sister Eleanor, my brother Oliver, and Serena, his wife." "How much?" "My father is worth approximately $1.7 billion. The estate is divided according to a will he signed some time ago. Eleanor and Oliver each receive 20%. Serena receives 30%. The remaining 30% comes to me, along with controlling shares of Sterling Holdings." Victor raised an eyebrow slightly. "Controlling shares to you. That is unusual. The oldest son model. Most modern families split things more evenly." "My father is an old-fashioned man, and I have been running operations at Sterling Holdings for many years. He wanted continuity." "Has the will been updated recently?" Damien paused. "I don't actually know," he said. "I assumed not, but I haven't asked. My father doesn't talk about money with me, unless he has to." Victor made a small note on a piece of paper. "We need to find out, tonight if possible. Who is his lawyer?" "A man named Arthur Langford. He has been my father's lawyer for many years." "Did your father ever talk about being unhappy with anyone? Concerned about anyone? Worried about money disappearing?" "No, but—" Damien stopped. "But some time ago he asked me a strange question. He asked me if I thought Serena loved him." Victor set his pen down. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I didn't know her well enough to say." He nodded and changed the subject. "I assumed it was just an old man's insecurity." He never brought it up again. "Did he ever say anything to your sister or your brother about it?" "I don't know." Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Damien, I am going to tell you something, and I need you to hear it without getting defensive. The most likely person behind this is someone close to your father. Not because she is the most evil, but because she had the most access. She knew his medical schedule. She knew what hospital he would be in. She knew which floor, which room, which staff. She probably knew which nurse he liked and which nurse he didn't trust. Someone fed information to whoever did this. Someone with eyes inside your father's life. It could be a staff member," Damien said. The housekeeper, the cook, the driver. Yes, it could be, but staff usually don't initiate plans like this on their own. They get hired, they get paid, they get told what to do. Damien felt his jaw tighten. You think it was Serena? I don't think anything yet. I think we have to investigate everyone, including the people you don't want to investigate. Including the people you trust most, especially them. Because the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. Damien thought about the way the girl in the hallway had stood so calmly. His phone vibrated on the table. He looked at the screen. Serena. He showed it to Victor without speaking. Victor nodded slowly. Answer it. Be normal. Tell her exactly what the hospital would have told her if nothing had happened. Your father is stable, resting well. The doctors are pleased. Do not mention the bag. Do not mention the puller. Do not mention me. Especially, do not mention the child. Damien took a slow breath, picked up the phone, and pressed the green circle. Serena, he said, I was about to call you. How is he? Her voice came through warm and concerned, the voice of a worried wife. I've been thinking about him all afternoon. Damien closed his eyes. He's doing well, he said, resting comfortably. The doctors are very pleased. Oh, thank God, Serena said. Her voice had the soft, slightly trembling quality of a woman who had been holding her breath for hours. I was so worried, Damien. I haven't been able to focus on anything all day. Should I come down there? I can be there soon. Damien looked across the table at Victor. Victor shook his head once, slowly. He's already asleep for the night, Damien said. The doctors gave him something to help him rest. There's really no point in you coming tonight. Get some sleep. Come tomorrow morning. He'll be more alert then. There was a small pause on the line. Are you sure? She said. I just feel like I should be there. He's my husband, Damien. I know, he said carefully. But the nurses are quite strict about visitors at night, especially in the cardiac wing. They want him completely undisturbed for the first period after surgery. The doctor mentioned it specifically today. He said the next couple of days are the most important for recovery. All right, her voice softened. If you think that's best, you'll call me if anything changes. Of course. Damien, thank you for being there with him. I know how busy you are. He's my father. Yes. The call ended. Damien set the phone down slowly. His hand was steadier than he expected. Well, he said. Victor was already writing in his notebook. She wanted to come tonight. That's interesting. The good wife is supposed to want to come. But there's another version of why someone would want to come tonight. To make sure the job got finished. Or to be present when the body is discovered, so she doesn't seem distant. Either reason works. We can't draw a conclusion from one phone call. Don't draw a conclusion from one phone call. Most marriages do not end in murder. Most stepmothers are not killers. The numbers are on her side. Remember that. What now? Now we go see Arthur Langford, tonight. I do not care that it is late. I do not care if he is in his pajamas. We go to his house. We do not give him time to make any calls before we arrive. A short while later, they were standing on the front porch of a large brick house in a quiet neighborhood outside the city. The lights were on inside. Damien could see a television flickering blue through the curtains of the front window. He rang the doorbell. A small dog began barking somewhere inside. The door opened. Arthur Langford was in his early 70s with thin white hair combed carefully across the top of his head and reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. He was wearing a cardigan over a button-down shirt. He looked surprised, then alarmed, when he saw who was standing on his porch. Damien, is everything all right? Is it your father? He's alive, Damien said. May we come in? Arthur Langford stepped aside without another question. He led them through a hallway with framed family photographs into a small study at the back of the house where he closed the door behind them. He gestured at 2 leather chairs. Tell me what happened. Damien told him a shortened version. The bag, the girl, the toxicology. He did not mention Serena's name. He did not mention anyone's name except his father's. When he finished, Arthur Langford was very pale. Dear God, he whispered. I need to know about the will. Damien said. The current version, not the one I think I know about. The actual current version. Arthur hesitated. Damien, attorney-client privilege. My father almost died today. If he had died, you would have read the will tomorrow. I am asking you to tell me tonight what you would have told all of us tomorrow if a child had not been standing in a hallway with an armful of towels. Please, Arthur. The old lawyer looked at him for a long moment. Your father came to see me a few months ago, he said quietly. Alone. He asked me to draft a new will. The new will has not been signed yet. It was scheduled to be signed soon after he was discharged from the hospital. Damien felt the room get very still. What does the new will say? In the new will, Serena receives a structured settlement of $3 million, a life use of the Connecticut property and nothing else. Your sister and your brother each receive 25%. You receive 50% and full control of the trust. The Sterling Foundation receives the remainder of the liquid assets, approximately $400 million. Damien did not speak. Your father did not tell me the reasons, Arthur continued. He simply said that he had come to certain conclusions and that he wanted to make his wishes clear before any further decline in his health. Did anyone else know about the new will? No one. He was very specific. He asked that I tell no one until the signing. Damien looked at Victor. Victor was already on his phone. They drove back toward the city in silence for the first stretch. The road was quiet at this hour. The streetlights moved past the windows in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Victor kept his eyes on the road. Damien kept his eyes on his hands, which were folded in his lap like he had forgotten how to use them. A few months ago, Damien finally said, whatever my father saw, whatever he learned, whatever he decided. It was recent, and someone found out, Victor said. Or someone figured out that he was about to find out something more. Either way, it gave them a deadline. The new will was scheduled to be signed soon. Whoever did this needed your father to die before then. Why not just wait until he came home? Why do it in the hospital? It's more dangerous in the hospital. Cameras, staff, records, because in the hospital a death looks like a complication. At home, a death looks like a crime. The hospital is the safest place to kill someone who is recovering from heart surgery, if you have access to the right person inside the system. Damien closed his eyes for a moment. The woman without the badge, he said. The fake nurse. She was probably never an employee of the hospital at all. Probably a person hired specifically for one task on one day. She walked in through the staff entrance wearing a stolen uniform. She knew exactly which room. She knew exactly when. Someone gave her all of that information. Someone who had been inside the room before. The car turned onto the highway leading back toward downtown. Victor, Damien said quietly, what if it isn't Serena? Victor did not answer for a moment. Then we will find out it isn't Serena. But Damien, the fact that the new will cut her down from 30% to almost nothing is not a small detail. $300 million is not a small detail. People have done much worse for much less. My father loved her. Your father wanted to love her, Victor said gently. That is not the same thing. They reached the hospital later that night. The night had settled in over the city. The lobby was nearly empty. Two of Damien's security men stood near the elevators. They nodded at him as he passed. On the upper floor, the corridor was quieter than it had been earlier. Most of the patients were asleep. The nurse's station was occupied by two women, working under low lamps. Damien's private guard stood discreetly at the door of the new room, dressed in plain dark suits that could have belonged to any visitor. Dr. Lang was waiting for them in the consultation room. We have something, he said. The surveillance team isolated the woman. She entered the hospital through the service entrance on the south side. But there's something else. Dr. Lang clicked the laptop and another image appeared. This was taken some days ago in the cardiac surgery consultation suite. Your father came in for his preoperative meeting. His wife accompanied him. They sat in the waiting area for some time before being called back. The image showed Theodore Sterling sitting in a chair, his hand resting on Serena's. They were talking quietly. Serena was smiling at him. "Now, look at the woman behind them," Dr. Lang said. He zoomed in on a figure 2 rows back. A woman sitting alone, pretending to read a magazine. Dark hair tied back, light brown skin, a small mole on her right cheek. It was the same woman. The same woman who had walked into Theodore Sterling's room with a cup of ice some days later. Damien stared at the screen. She was already watching him. Victor said quietly, "Some days ago, someone sent her to study him, to see how he walked, to see who came with him, to see what kind of patient he was going to be." "And Serena was sitting nearby," Damien said. "Yes," Victor said. "She was." Damien did not sleep that night. He sat in the chair beside his father's bed for hours, watching the slow, steady rise and fall of the old man's chest. The new room was quieter than the old one. A guard stood at the door. Another sat in the corner near the window, reading nothing, looking at nothing, simply present. In the early hours of the morning, Theodore Sterling opened his eyes. Damien leaned forward immediately. "Dad!" His father blinked at him a few times, focusing slowly. His voice was rough from the breathing tube that had been removed earlier. "Damien, what time is it?" "It's early. Don't try to sit up. Why are you still here?" Damien had thought a great deal about what he would say when his father woke up. He had rehearsed several versions of it. But now, sitting in the dim room with the old man looking at him through tired eyes, he found that most of his rehearsals fell away. "Dad," he said quietly, "someone tried to hurt you today. Someone put something in your IV bag. The doctors caught it in time. You are safe now, but I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be honest with me." Theodore Sterling's expression did not change for a long moment. Then it changed slowly in the way a face changes when a person who has long suspected something is told that it is true. "How bad was it?" he asked. "Bad enough that without the catch you would not have woken up." The old man closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were wet, but his voice was steady. "It was her, wasn't it?" Damien did not answer. He did not need to. "Tell me how you knew to look," his father said. So Damien told him about the girl in the hallway, the 2 punctures, the cup of ice, the woman with the mole. He told him about the new will and the months leading up to it. He told him everything except the parts that were still being investigated. His father listened without interrupting. When Damien finished, Theodore Sterling looked at the ceiling for a long time. "I should have told you," he said finally. "I should have told all of you, but I was ashamed." "Of what?" "Of being a foolish old man, of marrying a woman who was decades younger than me, and believing she did it for any reason other than the obvious one." He shook his head slowly against the pillow. "About a year ago, I started to notice things, small things. Money missing from accounts I do not look at often. Phone calls she would end when I walked into the room. A man's voice on her phone once asking when she would be free. She said it was the gardener. We don't have a gardener." Damien felt a strange cold echo at those words. Something familiar. Something he could not place. "I hired a private investigator recently," Theodore continued. "Quietly, a man Arthur recommended. He followed her for some time. He gave me his report the day before I went into the hospital. There is a man. His name is Alexander Voss. She has been seeing him for over 2 years. He is in his 40s. He is a financial consultant of some kind. He has debts. He is the kind of man who finds wealthy women who have access to wealthier husbands. The investigator believes they plan to wait until I died naturally. But I think when she found out about the new will, the plan changed." "How would she have found out?" Damien asked. "Arthur said no one knew." Theodore gave a small, bitter smile. "Because some time ago, I was an old fool one more time. We were having dinner. I was tired. I told her that I had been thinking about updating some legal matters and that I wanted to make sure that the people who had stood by me through my life were properly taken care of. I did not mention numbers. I did not mention her name, but she is not a stupid woman, Damien. She has never been a stupid woman. She would have heard everything I did not say. The old man closed his eyes again. "The child who saved my life," he said. "What is her name?" "Elena. Her mother works on this floor. A cleaner." "Elena." His father repeated the name softly, like he was learning it. "I would like to meet her when all of this is over." "You will." There was a long silence. Then Theodore Sterling said something that surprised his son. "Damien, I want her to come tomorrow. Serena. Let her come. Let her see me. Let her sit in the chair and hold my hand and ask the doctor questions. I want to look at her face one time, knowing what I know now. I want to see who I married." "Dad, please," the old man said. "I have earned that at least." Serena arrived at the hospital the next morning. She wore a soft gray sweater and a long camel coat, and she carried a small bouquet of white tulips. Her hair was pulled back into a low, elegant knot. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to look like, a worried wife visiting her recovering husband. Damien met her in the hallway outside the room. He kissed her cheek lightly, the way he always had. He felt nothing. "How is he this morning?" she asked. "Awake, talking. The doctors are very pleased." "Oh, thank God." She closed her eyes for a brief moment. The performance was almost flawless. "Can I see him?" "Of course." He held the door open for her. Inside the room, Theodore Sterling was sitting up slightly in his bed, the head of the mattress raised. His color was better than the day before. A blanket was tucked around his legs. He looked at Serena when she came through the door, and he smiled. A slow, gentle, husbandly smile. "There you are," he said softly. "Theodore." She crossed the room quickly, bent down to kiss his forehead. "I have been so worried about you. Damien would barely tell me anything yesterday. I have been sleeping. There has not been much to tell." She sat in the chair beside the bed and took his hand in both of hers. She placed the tulips on the small table. She asked the doctor questions when the doctor came in a short while later. She nodded thoughtfully at the answers. She squeezed Theodore's hand at exactly the right moments. She wiped her eyes once, briefly, with a tissue she pulled from her purse. She did all of it perfectly. Damien sat in the chair near the window and watched her, the way you watch someone you're seeing for the first time, even though you have known them for years. He thought about a story he had read or heard once about a man hiding behind flower pots in his own driveway, watching his wife walk in a garden with another man. He could not remember where the story had come from, but he understood it now in a way he had never understood it before. At some point, two men in plain clothes stepped quietly into the room. Detective Morales and another detective Damien did not recognize. Serena looked up, mildly puzzled. "Mrs. Sterling," Morales said. His voice was calm and almost gentle. "I am Detective Morales with the City Police Department. We need you to come with us. There are some questions we need to ask you about an incident at this hospital yesterday afternoon." For just a second, her composure slipped. Just a second. Her eyes moved very quickly from the detective to Damien to Theodore and back again. In that second, Damien saw a calculation happen behind her eyes. The kind of calculation that a person makes when they're trying to figure out how much someone else knows and how much they can still hide. Then the composure came back. "I'm sorry," she said. "An incident. What kind of incident?" "We will discuss it at the station, ma'am. Please come with us. You are not under arrest at this moment. We simply need your cooperation." She looked at Theodore. Her hand was still on his. "Theodore," she said. Her voice trembled in a way that sounded very real. "I don't understand what is happening." Theodore Sterling looked at her for a long moment. His face was very tired. He was an old man who had loved a much younger woman. and he was finally seeing her clearly, and there was no triumph in his expression at all. Only sadness. "Serena," he said quietly, "go with them, please." She stared at him. Her hand slowly slipped out of his. "Theodore, please." "Serena, go." She stood up slowly. She picked up her purse. She straightened her coat. And then, in a voice that was different from any voice Damien had ever heard her use, smaller and harder and much older, she said one thing. "You don't know what it was like, Theodore. You don't know what it was like to wait." Then she walked out of the room with the two detectives. The door closed behind her quietly. Theodore Sterling lay back against the pillow and closed his eyes. A single tear moved slowly down the side of his face into the white hair near his ear. He did not wipe it away. By the end of that afternoon, 3 more people had been arrested. The fake nurse was identified through facial recognition and tracked to a motel on the edge of the city. Her name was Daniela Reyes. She was a former medical assistant who had been fired from a clinic in another state for stealing controlled substances. She had been paid a substantial sum in cash. She gave up the rest of the names within an hour. Alexander Voss was arrested at his apartment that evening, attempting to pack a suitcase. A driver who had picked up an envelope at a coffee shop was arrested the next morning. The chain was short. The chain was clear. The chain led back to a woman in a gray sweater who had carried tulips into a hospital room. In the weeks that followed, Theodore Sterling came home from the hospital. He came home to the large stone house in Connecticut, where he had lived for many years. The house where his first wife had raised his 3 children. The house that had been quiet for too long. He did not come home alone. Damien had moved into one of the guest wings. Eleanor came on weekends. Oliver called every evening. Mrs. Ellison, the housekeeper, hummed softly while she worked in the kitchen for the first time in years. Serena's belongings had been removed and placed into storage. Her name had been removed from every account, every property, every document. The divorce papers had been filed. The criminal case was moving through the courts. Slowly. The way these things move with lawyers and motions and dates that kept changing. She would not be free again for a very long time. Alexander Voss would be free even less. On a quiet morning, a small car pulled up the long driveway of the Sterling estate. A woman in her mid-30s stepped out. Behind her, a girl with 2 careful braids climbed out of the back seat holding a small wrapped gift in both hands. Theodore Sterling was waiting for them on the front porch. He was thinner than he had been before the surgery, and he walked more slowly, but he stood without help, leaning lightly on a wooden cane. Damien stood beside him. Sofia Ramirez and her daughter walked up the stone path slowly, looking at the house, looking at the trees, looking at the old man standing on the porch. When they reached the steps, Theodore Sterling looked down at the girl. "Elena," he said. His voice was rough but warm. "I have been waiting a long time to meet you." She looked up at him with the same calm, serious eyes she had used in the hospital hallway. She did not seem afraid of him. She did not seem impressed by the house. She held the gift out toward him. "It's for you," she said. "I drew it." He took the package with both hands like it was something fragile. Inside, when he unwrapped it carefully, there was a piece of paper covered in colored pencil. It was a drawing of a hospital room, a bed, a small figure asleep in the bed, a pole beside the bed with a clear bag on it, and in the corner of the drawing, a tall man and a small girl standing in the doorway, the man looking at the bag, the girl looking up at the man. Theodore Sterling stared at the drawing for a long time. "So you don't forget," Elena said quietly. "No," he said, "so I don't forget." That afternoon, Theodore asked Sophia to sit with him on the back porch overlooking the gardens. He told her in simple, careful words that he had set aside a fund in her daughter's name. The fund would cover any school Elena wanted to attend, anywhere in the world, all the way through the highest degree she ever wanted. The fund would also include a separate account for Sophia herself. Enough that she would never have to clean another hospital floor if she did not want to. Enough that she would have choices. "This is not payment," he said, the same words his son had once used. "Payment can be refused. This is something else. This is gratitude. And gratitude, when it is real, is not a debt. It is just a part of how a life is supposed to work." Sophia cried then openly for the first time in many years. Elena sat between them quietly and held her mother's hand. Later, when the sun was beginning to set and the long shadows of the trees were stretching across the lawn, Damien walked Elena down to the rose garden at the edge of the property. He showed her a small wooden bench beneath an old oak tree, where his mother had liked to sit when he was a child. "You can come here any time," he said. "This place is part of your life now, too. You earned that." She thought about that for a moment in the careful way she thought about everything. "My mother says doing the right thing isn't a job," she said. "It's just who you are." Damien smiled. He had heard a sentence very much like that one once before. He thought about how strange it was that the wisest voices in his life had never come from boardrooms or universities, but from the people he had walked past every day without really seeing. The story you have just heard reminds us that betrayal does not always wear a stranger's face, and that the people closest to us sometimes hide the heaviest secrets. It reminds us that danger often arrives quietly, dressed in routine, and that the only thing standing between a tragedy and a saved life can be the courage of one person willing to speak up. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next powerful story. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are imaginary and do not represent any real people or true events. It is intended for storytelling and emotional reflection only.